Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, folks. This is the More Money Show. This is Steve Moore, economist. We talk about finance. We talk about money. We talk about politics. So thank you for joining. By the way, we are live and in color, so we will be able to give you updates about what is going on around the world right now. And it is a bit of a tumultuous day with the American bombing of Iran. And we're just kind of learning all the details of that. So normally I start with a soliloquy about what's going on with the economy, but I want to get right down to it and give you all an update on everything that's going on in this military excursion. And so I couldn't think of anybody better to talk to. And by the way, you all know that I'm an economist. I'm a finance guy. I am not a foreign policy guy. I'm not a military guy. I don't know a lot about it. I bet a lot of my listeners know more about this issue than I do. But the person who I know who knows more than just about anybody about these kinds of issues is my friend Kevin Cramer. He is the Republican senator from North Dakota. He is also on the Armed Services Committee. He's been a longtime friend. So, Kevin, I know it's a crazy day, Senator. Thanks so much for joining.
Well, Steve, thanks for the opportunity to join you. And I'm always skeptical of anybody that diminishes their own credentials because I feel like they're setting a trap for me. But I'm quite certain you cannot be a leading economist and not understand the importance of the geopolitical situation that we're facing right now. Because I do think, quite honestly, and I know we'll get to that, but when this all shakes out, Donald Trump will have shuffled the deck in many respects geopolitically, which will have serious opportunities, I believe, for an even faster growing economy worldwide. But that said, I don't think anybody woke up this morning shocked by the decision that the president made to finally launch an attack on Iran. He's had more patience than most people, and certainly more than most of our hawks, right? With regard to Iran, he demonstrated in Midnight Hammer that he wasn't going to tolerate their advancement of nuclear capabilities, and somehow they didn't get they didn't read between the lines that this guy's serious. And now, as he's called on them many times to come to the table, he's given them every opportunity. He's been gracious and even generous with the opportunities. Enough is enough, because Iran is they're not just sort of a third world country out there, in the Sahara Desert or somewhere in Africa. They're a very sophisticated, large country, about 90 million people, very sophisticated. 90 million,
people. Yep.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Iran, somebody asked me on the show yesterday, on the show with our friend Scott Hennon, which I know you're on his stations now, in North Dakota, asked about, they kind of created, they were angry, let's put it that way. And they were complaining a bit about Venezuela, they were complaining about Iran, very different situations. And I got to thinking about the similarities there. And the similarity is that there are still people alive who remember a better day. I think that's really relevant when you start differentiating between our frenemies or between, Islamic Arab states and whatnot, and Southern Hemisphere states, that when you have freedom-loving people in a country is now being oppressed by a regime, they remember how good they had it And that's what's going on here in many respects. In addition to Iran choosing to ignore the civilized world's call for them to abandon their nuclear ambitions, they still have people in the country that want to see a different situation.
Okay, so Senator, let's bring everyone, our listeners, up to date. I was just watching CNN and Fox News before I came on the show to try to get the latest of what's going on. But let's just sort of start from the beginning. So there had been again, I'm someone who doesn't follow this issue that closely. So, but I understand that there were negotiations going on to try to get Iran to give up their nuclear ambitions and so on. And it sounds to me like those negotiations did not go well with the Iranians, and that Trump, as you just said, was fed up with the lack of progress. And so the bombing happened last night. And who was bombed? Give us kind of, for people who don't follow this that closely, what exactly happened last night? And also, were you, as members of the Congress, alerted to this?
I received, I was not, but members of Congress were the Gang of Eight, as they're called, of course, the leaders of the four leaders of the two chambers, as well as the leaders, Republican and Democratic, of the intelligence committees.
Okay.
Were
so
informed.
Republicans and Democrats.
That's correct. Absolutely correct.
Yes.
And this is important because this is part of, our separation of powers and duties and all of those responsibilities that Marco Rubio, I believe, made a call to all of them. Talked to 7 of the 8, it's my understanding. So we were informed. Now, I've gotten a little bit of somewhat confidential. I don't want to say top secret because
of course.
I'm not in a setting to get that. But yes, everybody was well informed, but nobody's shocked because obviously the buildup was clear. That's all very public, particularly our Navy and all that. So that was all set to go. And it's always important, Steve, in these situations to acknowledge and emphasize that that Israel takes the lead in many of these situations. They have incredible intelligence. They have incredible air power. When we took out their nuclear capabilities in Operation Midnight Hammer, it was Israel in the 12-day war that cleared the path for us. So what this first level of attack is largely aimed at Iran's defensive capabilities, but also their offensive capabilities. So whether it's surface-to-surface missiles, which are really what they probably are best at, quite honestly, they have mid-range and short-range missile capabilities, but the mid-range is getting longer and longer all the time, so they can launch from Iran to, say, Israel and other military bases that are U.S. military bases, and Europe, and so eventually the United States. So, and by the way, with the full intention, that's the thing about Iran, the full intention of using them to wipe out the United States and Israel. And this is always important for those of us who maybe take a little more of a bit more of a populist view than others, than a hawkish view, that they really are an enemy that has proven time and time again their intention. And so this. Well,
I grew up in the era of the Iranian hostage situation back in 1979 and 1980, and so this has been going on for almost 50 years, basically, of Iran being an enemy combatant with the United States. So who did we bomb? What areas? The big issue, of course, is whether the Khomeini has been killed. I'm seeing all sorts of different reports, but what was the intention of these strategic and surgical strikes?
Yeah, sure. So the great point, because it's very relevant as you look at what will no doubt be a staged attack going at the various layers. One of the areas that was attacked was an effort, I think, to take out the leadership, and that it would be the complex where the Ayatollah lives. Now, given recent buildups, I got to believe that he's not foolish enough to sleep in his regular bedroom. But you never know. We have pretty exquisite intelligence from Iran, because there are a lot of Iranians who like to share that. But that was I think among the very first attacks was on that, and then we've seen even some of the video already of some of the attacks on ground-to-ground missiles or surface-to-surface missiles, some of the most dangerous types. Of course, we haven't gotten them all because they've been launching all night long as well, making the mistake, I believe, of launches aimed at U.S. friendly Arab nations who up until now, were sort of protecting themselves by staying somewhat out of this fight. But now Iran is actually drawing them in. If you see some of the statements coming out of UAE, Bahrain, even the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, these were countries. These are I call them our frenemies, Steve. But as I like to say about Donald Trump, he's not just a peacekeeper. He is making the United States a peacemaker, not just a peacekeeper. And I believe that this is going to crystallize that. And that's why I believe, frankly, that economics of all this, we're going to have a stronger trading relationship with Arab nations because it'll galvanize, who your friends are and who your enemies are. And Donald Trump started that, of course, with peaceful means in the Abraham Accords, while you were helping him and advising him. And now he has set that moral high ground and the relationship building that I think gets crystallized even more at a time like this.
So, Senator, when I called you this morning and asked if you could come on, you were so gracious. I said I'd like to keep you for 12 minutes, but is there any way I could keep you over for another segment? Because there's so many questions I have to ask you. This is Senator Kevin Cramer from North Dakota. He's on the Armed Services Committee, knows better, can explain what's going on better than anyone I know. Is it okay if we hold you over?
I'm happy to do it.
Okay. Well, folks, this is the More Money Show. We're talking about what's going on in Iran and our strategic interests there. And we will be right back with the great senator from North Dakota.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show, but we're not talking about money right now. We're talking about what's going on in Iran and the attack last night. And I'm talking to one of the guys who was, by the way, one of my best friends in Congress. And I don't usually like politicians, but I love Kevin Cramer. He's been a friend of mine for a long time and is one of the smartest guys I know, especially when it comes to national security. So, Senator, thanks again for hanging on with us. We've got to do a speed round, if I may, with you, because we only have about 5 minutes, but I have so much to ask you. So, question number one, how would you assess, based on what you know, and I know you can't divulge everything you know, do you believe that this strike was a success?
Well, whether it's successful or not will be determined by various outcomes. But from what I know right now, I believe it's hugely successful. First of all, the air defenses of Iran, which are pretty great, by the way, have not been successful in taking down any of our missiles that I know of. Obviously, the vast majority of them have gotten through. The newspapers in Israel are already reporting some leaked information about leaders being killed in action, and it's quite an.
And these are bad guys. These are bad guys we're taking down.
Super bad guys, and so that's important. I think it's already been successful in that, as I talked about earlier, you're already seeing other Arab nations sort of coming together against Iran because Iran has targeted them. I think in the early going, we're proving both our capability and as well as our will. And Steve, and I'm not trying to make news here, but I actually think this is not going to. I actually think this is not going to be as difficult as it's been projected by some people. I want to say difficult. I don't want to make it sound simple. It's not simple. But I think that we can be hugely successful much quicker than some people have anticipated. And I hope.
And what would that be? I mean, what kind of time frame do you think? How long will this last, do you think?
I would say, they're saying weeks, not days. Some are saying months, not weeks. I really do think that within a week, we're going to have a very clear picture of what's next. And then hopefully we can start this. The change of the country.
So the next, good. That's a great assessment. The next question is sort of what is our ultimate aim here? Is it for regime change? And is that possible? You mentioned the fact that there are 90 million people. That's a big country, Iran, 90 million people. Yeah. Do they want freedom? Do they want to be liberated? I don't know that much about the geopolitics of this country, but it seems to me the best outcome is if they put in a new regime that's pro-democracy, pro-freedom, pro-economic development. Do you see that happening?
I do see that happening, Steve. And one of the keys, I think, in the short term here as to how successful we are in that, and it's not necessarily our stated goal to have a regime change, but we're going to have a regime change or we're never going to be able to trust Iran and their capabilities and will forever be at war. But the president wisely called on not just the people of Iran to step up, but the military itself, and realizing that there are two levels of military. There's the IRGC, the Iran Islamic Revolutionary Guard, and they're really the keepers of the religion, if you will. They're the theologists, and they protect that. The Artesh, that's the regular army. They're more responsible. They're conventional defenders, if you will, of Iranian borders and territory, things like that. If the Artesh turns on the regime, or better yet, the IRGC turns on the regime, I think that's when I think that regime change can come quickly, and clearly it'll be much more difficult for the regime to defend itself, if in fact they're even still alive. There's no evidence so far of any of them being alive.
And this regime has been killing thousands and thousands and thousands of their own citizens.
They've been killing tens of thousands of their own citizens in recent years, much like they were previously when Barack Obama promised help and didn't deliver it. They've come to sort of have a skepticism about American leadership until today, because they've been promised so many times that help was coming, and it's not our job necessarily to police the world. We all understand that and know that. But this is self-defense as much as it is anything, and a regime change would be most welcome, and I do believe that that's going to happen.
And the last question in our last 45 seconds is, will we be able to take out their nuclear capabilities?
Yes, we absolutely will. If we haven't already, we absolutely will.
Good. Well, Senator, I know it's an amazing day, and I appreciate so much you taking time. That's Kevin Cramer, the great senator from North Dakota. Folks, we're live. We're in color. That's why we're able to bring you this news and get this great analysis. And we will be right back. This is the More Money Show on stations all over the country.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Boy, it's a busy day with what's going on in Iran, and we're trying to keep you up to date with everything that's going on there. For those just joining, we had an excellent conversation with Kevin Cramer, who's on the Senate Armed Services Committee, giving us the update. I was talking to my assistant, Zach, who is a manager of this show here in Washington. Zach, you were saying, I was asking you, what is the latest on whether they think that they've gotten Khomeini, and what are you hearing on the line? What's the latest?
Yeah, news is all over the place. Nothing is confirmed. Apparently, members of his family may have been killed. And he was obviously, for those who don't know, was supposed to go live on the news about 5 hours ago, and he never did.
So that means he's either in hiding or he has been killed by the raids. Let's hope it's the latter. So we'll try to keep you up to date, folks, with this story that is breaking every half an hour or so. But in the meantime, I wanted to bring on another good friend who is somebody that is an expert on education policy. I'm calling about David Barker. He is at the Department of Education right now. He is an undersecretary there where he works on higher ed. And as most of you know, if you're regular listeners of this show, I am very angry about our universities and how much money they're spending, how they're spending it, how they're teaching our kids. Why is it that we're graduating so many radicals out of our universities? And David Barker, like me, is a conservative. He is from Iowa. He is an education expert. I think, David, you went to the University of Chicago.
Yes, sir, I did. I got a PhD in economics there.
And did you ever run across, so many Nobel Prize economists, including Milton Friedman and so many other great economists there. Did you get to take any courses from those esteemed men and women at University of Chicago?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I took micro from Gary Becker, and I took macro.
Oh, he's one of my favorite economists of all time. I love Gary Becker. By the way, I don't know if Gary Becker is still alive. If he is, he'd probably be in his 90s.
No, he's not,
now,
unfortunately.
Yeah. But how was he as a teacher?
He's not living anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, he was absolutely a wonderful man and a great economist.
So you are now, tell us about your job, what you're doing, what your mission is for Donald Trump. You work with Linda McMahon, who's our education secretary, who I just adore that woman. I think she's been an outstanding education department secretary. And so tell her what you guys are up to. As I just said, I'm not a big fan of the direction of our universities, and you're sort of in charge of that area of the federal education system. So what are you guys doing?
Well, thanks. Yes, I'm the Assistant Secretary for Post-Secondary Education, and absolutely under the leadership of Secretary McMahon, who is just fantastic. I agree.
Yep.
But as you say, higher education is in crisis right now.
Yes.
Only 35% of people polled believe that college is valuable these days. Nearly half of college graduates end up in jobs that don't need the degree that they received. Huge majorities say that they think higher education is moving in the wrong direction, and tuition has exploded.
By the way, I'm in that group. I'm in that group solidly that thinks that higher ed is moving in exactly the wrong direction. I hope it's being reformed. But go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yes. Oh. No, not at all. I agree. But tuition from 1990 to 2020. This is after inflation and after grants and scholarships up 93%, and graduate tuition up 340%. I mean, just unbelievable.
Wait,
numbers.
I'm sorry. Hold on, David. Hold on. I want to make sure I understand what you just said. What's up 90%?
Yeah. So undergraduate tuition up 93% from 1990 to 2020. And that's, again, after inflation.
So almost doubled. Almost doubled.
Yes. And graduate tuition up 340%.
God.
I mean, and that's fueled by unlimited lending. So when the federal government says that we will lend you whatever college costs, then universities just raise tuition. And
David, I've been saying this. I've been saying this for 20 years, that it's like a dog chasing its tail. We keep providing more and more, grants and more of these loans. And it's supposed to make college more affordable to families. And as you just said, I mean, you have the data to support this, but I've looked at it observationally, and it just seems every time we make the student loans more valuable to, increase the amount of the student loan to make the college more affordable, the universities just raise their tuition. As I said, it's like a dog chasing its tail. It's making college less affordable, not more affordable.
Exactly right. And finally, under the leadership of President Trump, the Working Families Tax Cut Act was passed, otherwise known as the One Big Beautiful Bill. Which
I love that.
Which put some loan caps in place. And so we're already seeing graduate tuition come down in response to that they know.
So
that
hold on, David. Just hold on. Again, I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but you're giving us so much rich information. I want to make sure. So I didn't realize this. You're saying in the bill, the big beautiful bill, there were loan caps on student loans.
Yes, for graduate.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Graduate student loans. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, and it's $100,000 total for most graduate programs, and $200,000 for certain high-cost fields.
Wow.
And like medical school and law school, and we're already seeing some graduate schools lowering their tuition in response to these loan caps.
Wow. That's great news. That is great news.
It really is.
What about, what are you guys doing about wokeism? One of the big problems with these universities is, and by the way, to be clear, I'm not against a liberal arts education. I got a liberal arts education myself. You went to University of Chicago. I went to University of Illinois. But, at some point, when kids are not learning any useful skills at these universities, and you said they're not trained for any of the jobs of the future, that's a big problem.
It really is. And we're taking a number of steps to try and improve that. The president had an executive order on DEI in higher education, and we have, scoured the grants that come out of the Department of Education to make sure that they are not, promoting this kind of ideology. The president and Secretary McMahon have taken action against several universities that were pushing DEI, and that we've seen quite a response, and many universities across the country scaling back or eliminating their DEI programs. And another way that we're going after that is through the accreditors. Now, this is getting a little into the policy realm, but universities get federal funds only if they are certified by accreditors, and those accreditors are
that's kind of a scam. That whole process is kind of a scam, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, absolutely. And the president, one of his early executive orders was to the Department of Education to reform the accreditation system. And we've seen over the last year many accreditors eliminate their DEI requirements. So when I was on the Board of Regents at the University of Iowa and I was working to eliminate DEI programs, the response I got was, well, we can't eliminate them because our accreditor won't allow us to. Well, we're going after the accreditors now, and they are eliminating those DEI requirements. In fact, the American Bar Association, which was one of the worst offenders, first suspended their DEI requirement, and just this week announced that they're taking steps to eliminate it entirely.
So one of the things that has been my fetishes over the last 10, 15 years is that, and I'm going to give you, David, what may sound like a radical idea, but are you familiar with the College of the Ozarks?
Yes. I have met them. What a wonderful place, a work-based.
It is a wonderful place.
Work-based student living.
Yeah. So for people who are not familiar with this story, I've told this story previously on this show. The College of the Ozarks, the tuition at the College of the Ozarks is zero. And zero. Wait a minute. How can a college charge, no tuition? Every student on that campus works 20 hours a week. And they pay for their own tuition. Gee, what an idea that a 19, 20, 21-year-old should actually work while they're in school. And so, by the way, I've visited that campus. I've given lectures there 2 or 3 times. I've never met a more motivated group of students because they're actually paying for their own tuition. So what I'm saying is, why can't other schools use that? Why can't kids work while they're in school? And I think they'd value their education more. I think they wouldn't have to be so dependent on all these loans. And I think they would graduate with degrees that are worth something.
Yes, it's a wonderful model, and I met the president of the College of the Ozarks recently, and he explained that program, and it's great, and of course it goes back to my parents who when they went to college worked their way through college. I worked when I was in college.
I did too.
But even by the time I was in college, it was tuition had increased quite a bit, and it was not as well. I wouldn't say it was easy for my parents. They worked hard, and but paying your tuition by working was a reasonable plan. But tuition has increased so much in many cases that's more difficult to do. But the College of the Ozarks,
but you know why? But David, this is
a way.
Yeah. But the reason that the universities can get, it's a scam. The whole thing is a scam. They keep raising their tuition. The reason they can get away with that is because they've got the government or all of these loan programs and all of these scholarship programs and so on. And my point is, if you just use the law of supply and demand, and if the people who are actually getting the service are paying for it, they're going to require high quality. They're not going to let them get away with charging those kinds of tuitions.
Absolutely. When everything is funded by loans and grants, as you said, the universities have no reason to limit their tuition, and they plow this money into incredibly high-cost programs and amenities that the students wouldn't want if they knew that they were paying for it.
That's exactly right.
You don't need the lazy river. You don't need the lazy river in the student rec center.
Well, by the way, here's another one, David. I mean, we could go on for an hour, and I'd love to get you on the show again in the weeks to come, because this is one of my favorite issues to talk about, the scam of higher universities. But I grew up in the shadows of Northwestern University. My parents went to Northwestern. My brother went to Northwestern. And so I have all sorts of ties to that school. They're spending $800 million, David, $800 million on a football stadium. Now, look, I love Northwestern football. I think it's great. But $800 million, and they get a tax deduction for that? I mean, come on. And by the way, as we all know, college athlete, I love college sports too, but these are not amateurs. These are pros. I mean, they're getting paid for it. The whole thing. How can you say that $800 million is an educational activity for a football stadium?
Oh, it makes no sense. And, but there's this culture at universities of collecting as much as possible from the government and spending as much as possible and raising salaries. And, when I was on the Board of Regents at Iowa, I voted against some high-profile spending programs, and the response of the regents was to take me off of the committees that dealt with those issues.
You're not part of the club.
Right. Exactly. So no, we at the Department of Education, we want to put a stop to that by by limiting these flows of federal money to universities.
And would you say that you guys are? Have you been so successful? You've only been in 1 year, but do you feel like you're turning the dial in the right direction so that these universities are more responsive to taxpayers and the students?
Oh, I do. We have set records as far as the amount of change that we have brought about in the regulations that govern higher education. In fact, we've enacted these loan limits. We've enacted a short-term Pell program that'll give students an alternative to a 4-year degree and still be able to get Pell money for that. We've also put in place accountability provisions that the federal government will not fund programs that do harm to students. In other words, that leave them earning less than an average high school graduate earns. We're not going to pay for those programs.
That's amazing. Yep. One thing I'd like you to do, we only have about 2 minutes left, David, and it's David Barker, who is running post-secondary education at the Department of Education, is look at, seriously, this is just anecdotally, but the kids, when I went to college who were working while they were in school, did better when they graduated than the kids that didn't, because they valued the education. They were learning skills at the same time they were learning what's in the textbooks. So let's sort of try to push in that direction where kids, these are 19, 20, 21-year-olds. A lot of them have never worked a day in their life.
Yes, absolutely right. And I'm so glad that you brought up College of the Ozarks, because I have, like I said, met with them, talked to them, and I'm studying that model to see, to see how it works and how we can apply it more broadly.
Well, I'm so glad you're doing that. I'm so glad. Let's have you on again sometime in the next few weeks. Keep updating on this because you're doing the Lord's work, and it's the amount of money that is flowing into these universities. And you look at these kids who are graduating, and incidentally, it's the young people who are voting for people like Mandami in New York.
Yes, that's right. That's right. There is a lot of
we're teaching them to be socialists. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's right.
Well, David, you are a national asset. Keep doing what you're doing. Tell Linda McMahon that I love her. She is one of the best people in the cabinet. It's a hell of a cabinet that Donald Trump has put together there. And thank you for what you're doing. And folks, this is the More Money Show, and we will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Boy, it's been a whirlwind show so far. We've been really talking a lot about what's happening, the latest in Iran. We had a good discussion about what's going on with higher education. Zach Laba, who is my manager of this show here in Washington. Zach, you were telling me what's the latest in terms of now it sounds like Iran is just firing off bombs all over the Middle East. What countries are they bombing?
Yes, Iran is targeting U.S. military bases and civilian targets in Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel. Wow. So they are shooting in every direction they can think of at the moment.
Yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, they are going to be the enemy of every country around them, and that's I think a good thing for us because we have to put to rest this evil regime that is killing, as Kevin Cramer said earlier on the show, tens of thousands of their own citizens, murdering them. It is a disgrace what this Iranian regime has been doing. Just in the last couple of minutes of this hour of the show, I wanted to just read to you. I'm so disgusted. By the way, as you know, I'm so aglow about the U.S. men's Olympic hockey team gold medal. What a great moment for the United States and these incredible athletes against the powerful Canadian team. But I'm just going to read to you this New York Times. This was a news piece, and it's just unbelievable. I'm just going to read this to you. They're so critical of our great Olympic heroes. They said for a few hours on Sunday afternoon, that's a week ago, Sunday afternoon, this America of vast divides and rickety social bridges deferred briefly to the unifying power of sports. And then they say the U.S. men's hockey team won Olympic gold for the first time, blah, blah, blah. And then they say it was a time for joy for the country. But the next day, it wasn't. In the immediate aftermath of their victory, by the way, I'm reading the New York Times article. This is not my view. So, quote, in the immediate aftermath of their victory, the team took a customary congratulatory call from President Donald Trump, and some players laughed at a misogynistic joke about the gold-winning women's hockey team, which is BS, by the way. That was just a joke. It was funny and it was not misogynistic. They celebrated in the locker room with beer-chugging FBI Director Kash Patel, who is now under scrutiny for using taxpayer money to fund a sports getaway. Then after a wild night of partying in Miami following the return from Italy, some members of the hockey team announced plans to step in the House chamber, a stage upon which symbolism never neutral, and make an appearance at Trump's State of the Union. Oh, now that's end of quote. What villains they are for daring to go to the State of the Union when we would celebrate their gold medal. Okay, quote. In normal times, this is again the New York Times. In normal times, this would be an obligatory celebration for a championship team. They take presidential calls. They party too hard. But this isn't a neutral climate. This isn't a neutral president. And in the nation polarized like this, the proximity carries weight, whether the players are being international or merely intentional or merely naive. America no longer experiences these rituals in the same way, and it may never happen again. Athletes would be wise to recognize that in this climate, celebration is easily repurposed into political capital. That's crazy. What's wrong with celebrating the great American victory and being patriotic? I don't think the New York Times has 1 ounce of patriotic blood in their bloodstream. Folks, thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thank you so much for listening. Boy, it's been a busy day already. In our first hour, we talked a lot about what was going on, what the latest is in Iran. We just heard the news update. We'll try to keep you posted if we get any new information about whether Khomeini is still alive. Hopefully he has been killed. He has killed tens and tens of thousands of his own citizens. He's a murderer and he deserves to die. So we'll keep you up on that, even though it's not a money show. It's certainly important for our country and the future of freedom in the U.S. and around the world. I wanted to discuss with you in this hour a little bit about what you thought about Trump's speech. I know many of you listened to the State of the Union speech or watched it on TV. And I wonder whether you approved of what he said. He was a little combative. It was a very much America First speech, which I liked about it. But I want to focus for a few minutes about the economic message of that speech, because Trump is right that everyone's talking about affordability. And we at our group Unleashed Prosperity, which I run with a number of really superstars like John Fund, by the way, who will be joining us in a few minutes to give us an update on what's going on with the SAFE Act and voter integrity. But most of what Trump said, I mean, look, Trump does have a tendency to exaggerate. I love the guy, but sometimes he exaggerates some of these numbers. But if you look at the general trend of things, we put out a report at Unleashed Prosperity. You can go online, just go to unleashedprosperity.com and pull down our report on what we call the economic state of the union. And you will see almost every one of these statistics. And you can see the charts and the graphs and the official government data shows strong improvement in the direction of our economy, what was achieved in the first term. He mentioned the fact that gas prices are now down below $3 a gallon, in some markets below $2.50 a gallon. I just paid $2.69 a gallon recently, and when Biden was president, I was paying $4 and $5 a gallon. We're seeing median family income, people in the exact middle, the middle class, has seen about a $2,500 increase over inflation of their take-home pay. And this year they'll be getting on top of that a $1,500 paycheck. A $1,500 reduction in the taxes withheld from your paycheck. So that's like a $1,500 raise. So we're talking about the average family having about $4,000 more purchasing power, even when you account for inflation. And so I'm not saying there isn't an affordability crisis. I know people are angry about it. My own wife is, about how much groceries cost, for example, now. But one of the points that I told Donald Trump when I got together with him before the speech was, look, 86% of that increase in prices that people are angry about, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, whether it is buying ground beef or a steak, that happened under Biden, not Trump. So I feel like things are going in the right direction. We've had an incredible stock market. It's fallen a little bit in the last few days because of sort of the tumultuous effects going on in Iran. But as soon as we clean up that mess, and I think that'll happen sooner rather than later, as Kevin Cramer told us earlier on the show, then you're going to see the market go on its merry way. The average family has gained about $25,000 in the last year after inflation in their 401k retirement plans. We have seen, how about this one? We've seen almost a 33% reduction in violent crime in this country in 1 year. In 1 year, this is one of the biggest declines in crime ever. Now, how did that happen? Oh, maybe it's because Tom Homan has deported 250,000 criminal aliens, and we've gotten those criminals off of our streets. I'm very pro-immigration. I think immigrants are incredibly important for our country, but they have to come legally. And if the immigrants come into this country and they commit a crime, they should either be in jail or they should be deported, but not people who are working in this country. I'm not in favor of deporting them. So all of these statistics just show incredible movement in the right direction. And so we're going to be talking, by the way, a little bit about healthcare too later on the show with one of the experts, Cynthia Fisher, who's going to tell you about how price transparency will have such an important impact on lowering the cost of healthcare. So we're going to take a quick break right now. When I come back, we'll bring the great John Fund. You know him from the Wall Street Journal. You know him from National Review. You know him from Fox News. And he's going to give us an update on voter integrity, something Democrats don't seem to want. We'll be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show on a very, very busy Saturday. By the way, the weather has turned really nice where I am. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area. I know most of you are in the New York City area where it's a beautiful day, too. So I hope you get out and enjoy the fresh air and sunshine and get some exercise. Boy, it's been a brutal winter so far, and we're probably not done with it yet. Almost certainly we're not, but it's nice to get a little respite here and get some nice sunny weather and some warmer temperatures. By the way, this was the New York Times, of all places, just reported that from late January through late February was the coldest stretch in New York City. I think it was like the third coldest stretch in something like 100 years. Don't quote me exactly, but it was one of the coldest winters in the history of recording temperatures in New York City. And this comes at a time when the left is screaming about global warming. Now, you can make whatever you want out of that. I don't think it proves anything. But, you know, I guarantee you, if we have a hot summer, they say, oh, you see, we have global warming. So have you noticed this is why they use the term climate change? Because if it gets colder, that's climate change. If it gets warmer, that's climate change. If you have floods, that's climate change. If you have drought, that's climate change. If you know, whatever it is, if you have hail, it's climate change. So, by the way, we spent $16 trillion on climate change and we did not save one life with that money. So let's stop spending $16 trillion on those kinds of things and improve our schools and improve our society in so many ways. You know, we have a new report coming out that shows if we could just have spent 1/10 of that money on finding a cure for cancer, we'd have one today, and we would have saved millions of lives. Okay. Do we have John Fund with us, Mr. Producer? John, thank you for joining. John Fund. Hi, John. So, John Fund, you know him from National Review. You know him from Wall Street Journal. You know him from frequently on Newsmax, on Fox News, and he also works with me as one of the editors of the hotline, the Unleash Prosperity hotline. And if you are not getting this, folks, go to unleashprosperity.com and sign up, and it is absolutely free, and it's something I think you'll really enjoy getting. 5 mornings a week. We'll email it right to you. You can read it in 5 minutes, and John Fund is our political editor of that newsletter. So, John, thanks for joining. Something you and I have talked about in recent weeks on this show is what the hell is going on with the SAFE Act. The SAFE Act is basically a bill that would require basically a form of physical ID when you vote. I think you're the one who's been citing a lot of these statistics about how popular that is with voters. It seems like it's popular with everybody in America except the Democrats in Congress.
Well, the Washington Post did a survey a couple years ago. They broke it down into 50 Democratic categories. And the analysts said 39 of the 50 categories had a majority in favor of voter ID at the polls. The 50th had only a plurality, less than 50%, but still more than the opponents. And that category was called very, very liberal. And the analyst said, substitute MSNBC, MS Now viewers, and that describes the only people who were opposed to photo ID.
So what's going on with this, John? I mean, it's, as you said, it's a layup. I mean, almost every sane person believes that everything we do, you have to show an ID. In fact, I think sometimes you have to show an ID too often, but certainly to vote, to make sure that you're a citizen and to make sure that you're eligible to vote and you're voting at the right place at the right time, et cetera, et cetera. So what is it? I mean, Donald Trump brought this up and he said, well, maybe they want him to cheat, but it's hard to, I don't like to ascribe motives to people, but I can't think of any other reason why the Democrats are so opposed to making sure that when John Smith shows up to vote, it's really John Smith and he's really eligible to vote.
Right. And we also have problems with mail-in voting because mail-in voting doesn't require you to physically show up.
That's right.
And prove you are who you say you are. And there's separate security provisions that are needed and implemented for that.
Right.
But look, let's just say that the Democratic Party is opposed to firm, clear, unimpeachable rules. They like something that's a system that's loosey-goosey, has play in the joints. Because, remember, most districts, there's not very much voter fraud because they're not competitive. But if you get a really close race, and, believe me, our House and Senate races are getting closer and closer and could determine control of that body. You get a really close race and the rules are vague and mushy, then at the last minute you can throw some people in, just like the former Democratic appointee to the New York Board of Elections a few years ago admitted that there were buses in New York City that would take people, homeless people, pay them cigarettes and bus them from polling place to polling place and have them vote because there's no voter ID.
God. Yeah. So, what's the status of this now, John?
It has passed the House. It's headed to the Senate. Now, the Senate rules say that you have to have 60 votes to bring something to the floor, and it's not going to get that. So the Republicans are debating whether or not to demand a talking filibuster, where the opponents, the Democrats, have to sit and stand and talk until they are exhausted. Now, I think personally,
so that's like out of the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, right?
Exactly. And as senators became older and frailer, they decided to drop that and simply allow them to make their objection. After all, believe me, the majority of the Senate is almost 65 years old, so you can tell that they care about their bladder and standing up too long. But the bottom line is, I think we're not going to pass the SAFE Act this year, but we are raising the profile of the issue. We are forcing the Democrats and the opponents to make their ridiculous arguments against it, and I think we're setting it up for success in the future. At the same time, it also expands and improves the efforts in the states to pass voter ID and citizenship laws in the state level, and we're making a great deal of progress. 34 states now require photo ID at the polls. The big blue states don't want to do it. In fact, California makes it illegal to ask for anyone to show ID at the polls. But I think we're making progress. The elections in 2024 were much better than the elections in 2020, and the elections in 2028 are going to be even better.
So I want to thank you for that update on things. We've got a few more minutes with John Fund. John Fund from National Review and Wall Street Journal and so many other major media news outlets, and he's the world's expert on politics and elections. I want to switch, we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, John, on the issue of what is going on in New York City. And we've now had, almost 2 months of Mayor Mamdani. And I think most people would all agree that we're not too impressed so far, that he's done a horrible job of snow removal, of just collecting the garbage, just making the trains run on time. What is you've been in and around New York. I know you're from California, but for decades, you've been in and around New York City. How would you assess his first couple of months?
Well, confused. He's clearly a newbie on the job. He's appointed a bunch of radicals to run almost every city department. But the real defining moment that he had, I think, was this past week. President Trump stood up and State of the Union and told the Democrats, you stand up if you believe that American citizens should be treated better and have more rights than illegal aliens. And the Democrats refused to stand up. Well, what did Mamdani do that very same day? He went into a TV studio with AOC and he taped a message saying to New Yorkers, there's a February 27th deadline for the new city free child care programs, and you have to show up and register by February 27th, and no immigration status is involved. You can show up and get it. So this is, and by the way, the same day he went and advocated for property.
So in other words, hold on. So in other words, you can be in the country illegally and get free child care in New York?
Yes.
Jeez, I can afford to pay for that.
That's why he's asking for a tax on the rich, which of course is soon going to be the middle class. And he's already said that if the New York State Legislature won't pass a tax on the rich, he will raise everyone's property taxes. That's primarily paid by the middle class. So on the one hand, he wants to give free child care to illegal aliens. On the other hand, he wants to raise taxes on the middle class in New York City. That's his platform.
So if you were, I've asked my listeners this question. I asked them last week. I'm going to ask you this question, John. Let's say if Mayor Mamdani called you up said, John Fund, you know a lot about politics. You know all about government. And he said, just give me one piece of advice about how I can, cause he stumbled out of the starting gate, no question about it. What would you advise him to do? And by the way, we know that his social philosophy, his political philosophy is socialist. He believes in big government, but also New York City wants to make sure they're getting their services. So what advice would you give this guy?
There are mayors all over the country that are doing a much better job than the city of New York. I would have him convene the mayors of San Antonio and Miami, even Philadelphia, Detroit. Detroit has had a very successful mayor the last 12 years. I would have convene Democratic mayors who've decided that we are liberals, but we want to deliver services at a reasonable cost for people. And if you do that, you can't go wrong politically.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very commonsensical thing. My advice, if he asked me my advice, it'll never happen. I'd say, look, you give a good speech. You got a nice smile. You're charismatic. You go out and give the speeches and talk about how wonderful, the warm embrace of socialism, but put somebody in charge who knows how things work. Cause I don't think he's ever run anything other than a campaign before in his life.
No, the city usually hires a city manager who knows the nuts and bolts. And most cities managers are more powerful than the mayors. Houston, Texas is run by a mayor and a city manager. They do a very good job, and Houston is one of the best governed cities in the country.
So, doesn't New York City have a city manager?
It has a whole bunch of deputy mayors who are political appointees. They don't have independent authority. They answer to the mayor. And if his word is law, the city manager has a lot of independent authority in these other cities.
One last thing, John. We've really got 90 seconds left. John Fund is my guest. I think you may have sent it to me. It was kind of funny but pathetic article in the New York Times about how dare the U.S. hockey players go and visit the White House? Don't they know what a scoundrel Donald Trump is, and so on and so forth? What's that all about?
Well, sports journalism used to be some of the best writing in America. Now it's become a sewer of woke snarkiness.
It is.
And
you would have, by the way, John, you would have thought the sports departments would not have wokeism, but you're right. The wokeism is almost as bad in the sports section now as it is in the political section.
It's kind of sad because if you deviate at all from the identity politics of liberals, you are consigned to the forces of darkness. And I have to say, that's a reason why newspapers are dying, because many people in the past bought the papers for the sports, and that's why more and more people are going to independent websites, like the Barstool guy and all of that.
That's right.
On the internet.
Right. It's so true. Well, John Fund, thank you for joining. John Fund works with me at Unleash Prosperity. He is all over the news, Fox News and National Review and Wall Street Journal. Thanks so much for joining, John. And
thank you.
Folks, we will be right back. This is The More Money Show on WABC.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show on a beautiful Saturday afternoon all over the Northeast and Southeast. I'm in the Washington, D.C. area, and I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday. Remember to get out and get some fresh air and some sunshine and enjoy this respite from what's been a brutal winter so far all over the East Coast. So I'm going to be taking your calls in about 10 or 15 minutes because I love to hear from you all. We're live. We're in color. We're about the only station, by the way, that is live on a Saturday afternoon. And so please call in if you have views on any of the things we've been talking about. But most especially, as I said, I'm not an expert on the military. I'm not an expert on foreign policy. So I want to know from you whether you approve of what Donald Trump has done with these strikes in Iran. I'm still learning about it, so I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I do not want America to be the world's policeman. On the other hand, when you've got somebody who's killing murdering tens and tens of thousands of people, do we have a moral obligation to come to their defense? I don't know the answer. I'm just asking the question. There's no question that Khomeini is a very, very bad guy, and his lieutenants are as well. They are like Nazis that are just killing people indiscriminately to hold on to power. So that number, by the way, for the More Money hotline is 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222 or 1-800-848-WABC. But before we get to your calls, I have asked my good friend Cynthia Fisher, who is a hero of mine. Cynthia Fisher is the Paul Revere of healthcare, calling out and warning Americans about the runaway costs of our healthcare system. And she has got an answer to the problem, which is that every single time you go to the hospital or a doctor or a clinic or you buy a pharmaceutical drug or a prescription drug, you should know what the price of it is, because we do not have price transparency in healthcare. We have price transparency in just about every other thing we buy. You go to the grocery store. Can you imagine going to the grocery store and there are no prices on anything? I mean, how could you shop? And then you go to the checkout, line, and they charge you $400 because you had no idea what things cost. That's how our healthcare system works. It's rotten to the core. It's only working for the big hospitals and the insurance companies. And the person who is going to bring that to an end is Cynthia Fisher. She is a good friend. By the way, I apologize, Cynthia. I forget the name of the organization that you have started on the need for healthcare price transparency. What's the name of the group?
Oh, thank you, Steve, for having me on today. And yes, our organization is called PatientRightsAdvocate.org. That's PatientRightsAdvocate.org.
Advocates.org.
And
okay.
we know this show is more money, Steve, right? How do we put more money into the American workers' paychecks and American families' budget is to be able to save our own money and benefit from competition and consumer choice like any other market. Everything in our economy is under a free market, right? Other than healthcare. So when
not healthcare, right? By the way, healthcare and education are the two.
We can lower our costs.
Yes. So
healthcare and education.
You got a great shout out from the president for this issue in the State of the Union. He said we have to have healthcare price transparency. You and my buddy Arthur Laffer, who's a mentor of mine and yours, really have put together. I mean, I'm so impressed by the way you've taken an issue and you rode with it now for the last several years, and all of a sudden people are waking up to the fact that the whole system is corrupt, that nobody knows what anything costs. Tell my listeners, you have some amazing statistics about, like, you go to one hospital and it's like $4,000 for an MRI, and then there's another hospital down the street and it's only like $800, and people don't even know how to shop around.
Well, that's right. As long as people are blind to no prices and blindsided by outrageous bills, they have no idea whether they're even paying when they get those bills the correct amount that was negotiated by their plan. Neither the workers that have it through their health care coverage through their employment, nor the employers, because the industry, both the hospitals and the insurance companies, have been in cahoots to keep prices hidden. And know now that over 6 years, when President Trump came in the first administration, we worked with the first administration to show them that existing law had given all of us, we are the true purchasers of healthcare, whether we get our coverage through our employment or the exchange, or we get it through Medicaid or Medicare. We are the true purchasers as workers and taxpayers, as the American people.
That's right.
And share that with the American enterprises and even the public sector, the school districts and the state governments alike. However, the industry has cleverly used obfuscation to charge whatever they want. And so many families, nearly everyone has a story of some member of their family being crushed by medical bills they never expected to pay, and just try to find out if it was correct or not. And then the hospitals sue for balanced bills, which they were supposed to stop doing with the No Surprises Act, and garnish people's wages who already have two jobs, right, in this country, or put a lien on their homes. And this is just, if you think about it, we also see the insurance companies denying coverage when, in fact, in the plan, they the coverage was supposed to be covered for a hernia repair or an appendectomy or even childbirth. Let's be real. The reality is the Trump administration, the first time around, Steve, as you know, made the hospitals and the insurance companies have to show prices because we looked at three existing laws, one being even the Affordable Care Act, gave us the right to know all standard charges before we get our care. And when we get our bills, we should be able to audit them against the price, right? And even insurance companies, big insurance carriers, I mean, this is what they do, the employers. If you're an employer and you want to get access to make sure the payments match the prices, they say, well, pound sand, you don't get coverage for your workers unless you sign an anti-audit provision. And they only let them review 250 claims. I smell a rat there, Steve. So, you know, the reality is we have to thank the president because in his healthcare plan, in his great healthcare plan, he came out and said he wants to maximize price transparency and he wants all those billing claims to show everybody's fee of what all the middle players are charging that are totally non-value, that we should be able to lower the cost and directly pay that provider in time and cut out all the unnecessary fees and overcharges and uploading.
So a lot of people think that, you know, oh, well, why should I be concerned about the cost of health care because I've got health insurance coverage or I have Medicare or this or that, or I have employer coverage. But one of the things that you've taught me, and it just makes sense, it's just obvious, simple economics, that, you know, when the employers have to pay, you know, sometimes $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 or more for workers' health care because they cover the cost, guess what? That means they can pay they're going to have to cut the pay of the workers because if the package is too big, they can't afford to pay them. In other words, people would have more bigger paychecks, right, Cynthia, if it weren't for the runaway cost of health care, because then it wouldn't cost the employer so much money. And the only way they can pay for it is to cut the pay to the workers.
Well, not only that, it's really because the workers actually are the insurance carriers because they're paying for the insurance premiums with the employers, right? It's coming out of an automatic deduction from their paycheck. And then what adds things even worse is because the insurance industry has been gaming it, because the higher the charges are, the more the insurance industry makes. There's a big flaw in the Affordable Care Act that allows both the hospitals and the insurance companies to profiteer at higher and higher and higher charges. So it's a perverse incentive. So then what employers have had to do is push down high deductible plans to the American families. And many people don't even have $400 of savings. And what we find is they'll have a $2,500 per person deductible. Some are even at $6,000 high deductible plan. And so people don't get the care they need for the fear of financial ruin because they don't have that kind of money to pay for care. So the reality is that we can lower all of this, Steve, because prices vary from the first Trump administration starting to get hospitals and insurance companies to show prices, even though they flout the law by and large. What we're seeing is, like you said earlier, there's a 10 times difference in what the insurance plans negotiate at charges, even in the same hospital on the same day. Let me give you an example is we should have the right to pay the fair market price. So as you know, what Trump just did in this Great American Health Plan and in the State of the Union, he said, we need to put in place maximizing price transparency. So you or I could search on Google, we could ask Siri, we could use ChatGPT, and we could say, let me know the closest place to get an MRI at the best price. And MRIs are a commodity now, you know, and so when you look at standalone imaging center paying cash money for an MRI, no one should pay more than $300. $300. And yet, if you go to Mass General in Boston, my husband's Blue Cross plan bill for an MRI is $7,500 with a $2,200 copay out of that.
That is so crazy. I mean, the thing is, you know, like as you know, I travel a lot as you do. And so, you know, when I have to take a trip somewhere, I just go to, you know, Google Flights or something like that. And the the airlines compete, with each other in terms of lowering prices. And I say, I'm going to take this flight because this one's only $250 and the Delta flight is $450. In other words, you can shop around online. You should be able to do that with healthcare, but you can't. You could basically say, okay, I need an MRI. I live in Washington, D.C. I'm going to push the button on my phone. It'll say, hey, you could get an MRI at, Mass General for $400 instead of $2,000. But that's not the way the healthcare system works.
That's absolutely right. But it can change, and it is going to change. And let me tell you, the transparency train has left the station. Yes, we got New Yorkers, many that listen in, and East Coast folks. But I'm going to tell you, that train's left the station. And the more we're pulling back the curtain, we're realizing, look, the president also wants most favored nation. That means he wants to make sure we as a country aren't paying more for drugs than other countries. But the reality is, the way he gets there is we first have to see all of the prices in drugs. What is the net price? And I can give you the example that this is such bipartisan supported by both sides of the aisles, because over and over, people want and know that they won't be hosed or fraudulently or erroneously overcharged if they can get access to prices up front, itemized bills, and then be able, when they share the payment with their employer or the government, see, in fact, that what the amounts were and who got what. Now that's, we get it even when we take our car in for repair or we buy a car. We can trust the car dealership a heck of a lot more than we can trust our hospital or insurance carrier right today. Amazing. Why? Because trust equals transparency, and we can drive down those costs. Congress in the Senate right now, and the president called a month ago. He said, I am looking for bipartisan Congress, bicameral, to put into play what is supported by 96% of the people in this country in the polling, is to deliver maximum price transparency and accountability in billing and payments. This is huge because Senator Marshall and Senator John Hickenlooper both have the Patients Deserve Price Tags Act, and we understand that is soon ready to go to markup in the Senate, and it has strong bipartisan support by over 10 Democrats and 10 Republicans.
Well, Cynthia, it is moving, and you're the one who is moving this. I remember when you first told me about this idea a couple of years ago, and you're winning, and that's the good news. And I'm going to end with this question. We've only got 30 seconds left. I believe, and you tell me if I'm wrong or right at it, I believe we could get better health care outcomes in this country, better health at half the cost with this kind of reform.
Well, that's absolutely true because, that is on par with other developed countries. But the only way we can get there is to see the prices and then let everybody benefit from the competition and choice. Yes. And I'm really encouraged. I just spoke to over 6,000 independent orthopedic surgeons yesterday. They all want to show their prices, and they want everybody to know where the lowest priced MRI is, where the lowest price of PT to make it efficient that people can get physical therapy when they need it, wherever they need it, and even be able to do it digitally and remote with someone if they can't get access easily. So
there's no saying that.
And they say, look, knee replacement should be $17,000. There's no reason why a hospital should charge over $70,000 for a knee replacement. And so they want to drive down the cost, and we can get there.
When you have competition, you get lower prices, and we need more competition and transparency. Cynthia, keep fighting. I want you to come on in a couple of weeks, give us the latest update on this. You have President Trump in your corner, and that counts for a lot. Folks, when we get back, we'll be taking your questions and comments, 1-800-848-9222. I understand there's one line open for people who want to call in. The next rest of the show is your opinion on all the stuff that's going on. Do you approve of what Donald Trump has done in Iran? I'd like to hear from you. You may know more about this than I do. This is the More Money Show on WABC.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We are back, folks. This is the More Money Show. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. I hope you're enjoying some warm weather and some sunshine. Finally, because it is a long, cold, lonely winter, as George Harrison would say. And here comes the sun, finally. So I am going to take your calls now because I learned so much from listening to you. I always say I'm not the smartest radio talk show host, but I do have the smartest listeners in my audience. So, always appreciate you. And by the way, thank you so much. I've been doing the show now, I think 3 or 4 years following Larry Kudlow, and it is a privilege to be in front of this microphone every Saturday afternoon. We're on from 1 to 3. And I want to send a little shout out to my friend, John Catsimatidis, who owns this station and has turned it into a blockbuster, maybe the number one talk radio show in America. And I want to also do a little shout out to my friend Sean Spicer, who I understand has a new show on WABC. I believe it starts this Sunday morning. I believe it's at 10 a.m. Mr. Producer, if you wouldn't mind checking that for me. I believe he's on, and I think this is his inaugural show this Saturday, and I pre-taped an interview with him, so you might want to listen to that because he always comes on my show, so I agreed to come on his show. And Sean is obviously a national asset. He served as the first communications press secretary for Donald Trump. Boy, does he have stories to tell. Okay, so we have 2 lines open, by the way. A couple people waiting. 1-800-848-9222 or 1-800-848-WABC if you would like to join the conversation. Let us start with Rob in Long Island.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for taking the call. So I'm doing 35 years health insurance, right? So I wrote a letter to Trump as well as Howard Lutnick and RFK. From 35 years doing this, to me, the best solution is to double the Medicare tax on payroll. The average employee makes $60,000 a year, right? You double that. That means that the employer and the employee each contribute $60 a month. You would raise about $263 billion. With that, I advocate a national hospitalization plan because the biggest fear of the middle class is the hospital bill. It's not the surgeon's bill. It's not the evaluative health care. And then, if you recall, are you with me, Steve?
I'm listening.
Okay. If you recall, the Affordable Care Act, you can take 9.8% of the employee's salary, and then they can't take a tax deduction unless it exceeds 10% of their gross. Throw all that out the window. I would give every American under $80,000 $2,000 tax credit. That means, statistically, according to Millman and Roberts, healthcare actuaries, you are solving for 90% of people who don't go, 90% of the population don't go over $5,000 in claims. Don't forget,
exactly.
If you're hurt on the job, the worker comp pays. If you're hurt on the at the car accident, the liability pays of the car insurance. And at this point in time, the cost borne to the employee is so extreme that it's not worth the money. And if you then took every doctor's evaluative super bill, you know, when you go to a neurologist's office, he's got a set of codes that are germane to his practice, right? You make them post those codes with the Medicare fees and then his private pay fees. And I guarantee you, people will shop around and they'll see, oh, gee, an MRI and Medicare is $500. It's not $2,000.
Okay, Bob, I'm going to have to cut you off. Good points. Thank you for calling. So, listen, I mean, my view is that we ought to just give people a healthcare voucher and let them buy their own health insurance. I don't agree that we should raise the Medicare tax. It's already coming out of workers' paychecks. We're already paying way too much tax. I really believe if we had transparency and we had if people actually paying more out of pocket, in other words, you're paying through the roof for insurance, and most Americans don't even use the insurance that they have. So it would be a much better system if you bought healthcare like you bought groceries, and everybody just had a catastrophic health insurance plan in case you have cancer or heart disease or some terrible chronic illness where you have, huge hundreds of thousands of dollars of health benefits. But why do we have health insurance for a doctor's visit or health insurance for going to the dentist or those kinds of things? That doesn't make any sense to me, and it just drives up costs. It makes more and more middlemen. Let's let the free market work in healthcare. Let's have health savings accounts. It's something my friend Steve Forbes has talked about for years, and he is absolutely right about that. I believe we have another caller, Alice in Queens. Alice, you are on the More Money Show.
It's Alan, and good afternoon to you, Steve. Great coverage of the historical events taking place. And let me just say, John Catsimatidis is an outstanding actor as well in the award-winning Marty Supreme. So let's give him a shout-out for that as well.
Wait, hold on, Alan. I just watched that movie the other night. Is he in that movie?
Yes, he is in that movie.
I don't know how I missed that.
He's the father of the kid who does the little balls with Marty.
I'm going to have to go watch that again. I know the scene you're talking about, and I didn't realize that was John Catsimatidis, and that's a very famous scene in that movie.
John is an incredible New Yorker, and I know that he loves the state of Israel as so many New Yorkers. And I have to say that today Donald Trump solidified his legacy as a peacetime president by pulling a malignant tumor of Islam out of an incredibly important Persian culture that's been around for as long as Christianity. And I think the joint efforts of the Israelis, the IDF, which I am very proud to say was my birth country, and I've been adopted by America since 1973, Steve, New York. I love this country. And Donald Trump today literally cemented his place in just not the history books, but the millennium books, because his supreme accomplishment of annihilating the Ayatollah today, but also having the Arabian Peninsula fight side by side with America and the Israeli Defense Forces is really one for the ages. And I think that I hope that in the next couple of years, I could visit my great-great-grandfather's farm, which is in Iran, and break bread in Tehran, because you know, this really is historical. Donald Trump, for all of the people that don't understand what a real warrior looks like, well, the history books will have a picture of Donald Trump, because that is really what he is. He's a warrior for peace. And believe it or not, today is the day he cemented that he is a peacetime legacy as president. That's all the history books are going to remember.
All right. Alan, great call. Thank you so much. Look, I am not an expert on foreign policy or military policy, but I do look at what Trump did in Venezuela, which was just absolutely incredible. He liberated 30 million people who were captive of Maduro there, who was a murderous thug and a narco, bringing in all of these drugs to the United States. I mean, he was a really bad guy. He took them out. He is going to make Venezuela a middle-class country again. Literally, the people were eating the animals in the zoo. That's how he was essentially starving his own people. So that was an incredible thing. And he did that without the loss of one American life. It's incredible. And now we're seeing what's going on in Iran. I don't know the latest. What were you saying, Zach? You just gave me the latest update. Why don't you give our listeners the latest you're hearing?
Yep, just like Alan alluded to, more and more sources are beginning to confirm that the Ayatollah of Iran, Khamenei, may in fact be dead.
Wow. But we do not have official confirmation of that, but
I've not seen any U.S. confirmation, but apparently the Israelis have video footage of his body.
That's amazing. Well, let's hope that is true, because that guy is a murderer as well. And by the way, tens of thousands of his own citizens he has murdered. And, I think that the next big thing that could happen, and by the way, Trump, when I travel around the world, and I do a lot of traveling around the country and the world, and I asked the elites in these countries, what do you think of? We don't like Donald Trump. And then, if you get in a cab in London, or you talk about construction workers in Europe and so on, and we love Trump. We love Trump. He cares about the working class. He cares about, real people. He's not an arrogant, out of touch politician who's getting rich off of his own, actions. And that's the attitude of working class people who aspire to do better all over the world. And so then you have the situation just, less than 20 miles off the coast of Florida in Cuba. And we've been trying to liberate Cuba for 60 years. John F. Kennedy tried it, failed with the Bay of Pigs. We have over 1 million Cuban Americans in this country, most of them in Florida. The Cubans do incredibly well when they come to America. Cuba has made no economic progress in 60 years. It's like if you go to Havana, you feel like remember there's that scene in Godfather 2 where they're there. I mean, it's no different. It's worse today than it was even back then. No economic progress. So people are still driving around cars with cars that were built in the 1950s. That's how backward that country is. And now we're starting to see the possibility of an overthrow or maybe a peaceful overthrow of the regime there. Can you imagine how rich? And I told Donald Trump this when I met with him. I said, sir, if you are able to liberate Cuba, and I'm not talking about an invasion, but just by persuading the Castro family that, hey, maybe that you should realize that your communism doesn't work out, and why don't you return to being a free market capitalist system? If they had free market capitalism in Cuba, I told him, I said, sir, Cuba would be the Hong Kong, the old Hong Kong of the Western Hemisphere. And there's no reason it cannot be a very rich country. It's just that they have tyrants running that country. And so my point about bringing this stuff up is that Trump is spreading free market capitalism all over the planet. I mean, look what's happening in Central America with a bunch of these countries and their citizens throwing out the arrogant, out of touch, evil rulers and putting people who are, going to liberate give freedom and free enterprise and let people start companies and keep the money that they earn. That is happening. It's happening now. It's going to happen in Venezuela. We're seeing it in Argentina with Milei. We're seeing it in Costa Rica. I think we're going to look at Eastern Europe, by the way. Eastern Europe is moving in a free market. Not all those countries, but Poland and Hungary and other countries are. So I believe there's a freedom revolution going on in this country, in this world. I mean, you just see it. And I think you're going to see Trumpian revolutions everywhere in the world. I really do. Even maybe Russia, for goodness sakes. Even getting rid of Putin in Russia, which the guy can't live forever, can he? I know Castro lived for a long time, but why can't Russia be a free market capitalist system? The Russians who come to the United States do very well. And then maybe we could even overthrow the regime, the evil regime in China. And China, of course, is our greatest adversary right now, and they're an evil regime. There is no freedom in China. It is a terrible place. It used to be moving towards freedom, and then it moved in the opposite direction. My point is Trumpism, Trump economics is working. And by the way, there's a great book called The Trump Economic Miracle by the great Arthur Laffer and the less great Steve Moore. But you can get that book and look at the statistics. Look at what is happening. Look at how much improvement we have seen. In 5 years in office, the first 4 years of Trump in his first term and the first year of his second term, in 5 years, average median income has gone up almost $8,000. That's a lot in 5 years. And it completely reverses the losses that people suffered under Joe Biden. So this is a future of freedom and prosperity. I gave a talk yesterday in Florida to about 200 college and university kids and some high school. And I just told them, look, the lesson of the last 100 years is freedom works. Free markets work. Socialism is a failure. I don't understand why the voters of New York don't get that. It's very simple, folks. You don't want the government telling you what to do. If the government, Ronald Reagan said it best, and I'll end on this, that a government that's big enough to give you everything you want is big enough to take everything you've got. And that's what's happening in New York right now, and it ain't going to work. So folks, have a great weekend. Enjoy the sunshine today and the warm weather. I hope it sticks around, and we will be back same bat time, same bat channel on the More Money Show next Saturday.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, Share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.